watch this?
How?
How?
Ew,
How do you watch this?
Dude, I'm gonna pee my pants.
Hi, and welcome to How Do You Watch This? A movie review podcast where each week we give each other a movie to watch in the genre we love, but they don't. My name is Megan, and I love romance.
My name is Demi, and I love horror.
And for this week, we chose to pick out for each other a movie along a common thread, which we'll discuss in a moment. The movie,
Okay.
the movie. Maybe someday I'll get used to starting an intro.
In like 30 seconds, we'll tell you what we're doing.
In about 5 seconds. Just hold tight. I know it'll be challenging for you. Okay. So I picked for Demi. The movie I picked for Demi to watch was Barefoot.
And the movie I picked for Megan was called Disturbing Behavior.
Right. So the common thread was someone gets brainwashed. It's pretty specific.
Yeah.
And we, said that kind of we would allow room for like interpretation for that because that's a kind of a tricky.
Yeah. Like not literally brainwashed.
Right.
But,
You don't have to have like a magician with like a hypnotizing
watch
or whatever. So I'm going to go first this week because last week Demi went first.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about Disturbing Behavior, which is a 1998 movie by director David Nutter.
Mm-hmm.
And to give you a little snapshot, fan favorite James Marsden moves with his family to a new town where all the popular people are possessed by an eyeball demon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much
That's
pretty much how the movie goes. So, I was thrilled beyond belief to see that my boy James Marsden.
I knew you would.
Yeah, so excited. Anything he's in, I'll watch it, no problem. Before I get started, though, I do want to say there are some content warnings for people. So, mental health issues, suicide, mind control, eyeballs. If that's maybe that's a weird thing for you.
Yeah.
Don't know. I don't like eyeballs, but I watched it. Death, sexual assault, and violence are all prevalent themes in this movie. Okay, so like I said, James Marsden is in it. I saw right away. I saw him. I saw Katie Holmes. I was like, we're in for a good one. Yes. It's going to be so good. She picked a quality one for me today. So I was really excited. Well, let me just tell you that the opening scene is the scene that I said absolutely needed to be deleted. That was...
I knew it had to be one of yours.
It was...
Please paint us a picture.
Yeah, okay. They never explained this, by the way.
No.
I waited the whole movie for this to get explained. The whole movie. So you open up, you get this beautiful fake starlit sky, like very clear, not real stars, but beautiful. It pans down. You have a car in the middle of a lookout point, very classic Lover's Lane stuff. Mm-hmm. And two high schoolers are making out in it, and I'm thinking to myself, they're about to get murdered. Like, obviously.
Right.
Someone's going to come up on them. They're going to get killed.
Yeah.
Because that would make sense, because it's a Lover's Lane. It's a scary movie. This is what's going to happen. So you see that the guy who's in the car, the guy and a girl in the car, and the girl is trying to get it on with him. She is super into it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, direct quote, I need my fluids, unquote. I need my fluids? What?
Oh God!
He said he had a football game Friday, and he needed his fluids. Which the whole movie am thinking that there is some sort of alien creature that cannot lose its fluids.
They really have you going from that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
He said it twice.
Fluids. Yes,
He said it twice. He needed his fluids. And I was like, okay. That was horrible.
Yep. So
then he's there. She's like, well, how about this? And she gets down to give him, some oral sex moment, apparently. And he got really upset about that because he needs his fluids. So he snaps her neck, casual, No big deal. Okay. So then you see there's a cute little doggy, like a little collie, I think,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, sitting there, and then some like pothead delinquent, thank you, pops his head up. He's got his hood on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got a good one here. I don't know, I guess he's creeping on people.
Yeah,
like,
he's like watching. Yeah.
So he was like excited. So he's like peeping over with his dog. And then the police come around. They're like, because, God forbid people fornicate in a car. I guess that's like really treacherous. So anyway, like the police comes and like the two officers get out of the car and they're like, come with me, son. And so they go on a stroll together. And then the other officer's like looking in the car and he sees the dead girl. Yeah. And he's like, oh no. And then the football jock boy, I think his name's Eddie or something, I don't know. Yeah. He basically sees that the officer noticed, stole the gun off the other officer, shot the officer that noticed. Then the officer he stole the gun from was like, hey, calm down, boy, calm down.
Yeah, because he's like a jock football star, so it's like, oh, it's more important.
Right. And I like literally, and I still don't understand this, because I don't think that guy had any sort of, anyway. He basically has him get back to his car, throws the dead girl out of the car, calls the police station and was like, we got 2 wet ones up here. Yes. Okay. So apparently they're coming to get rid of the bodies and the boy just runs loose. Some boy who murdered a girl in cold blood and then a cop? I don't know. So anyway, that's how they open.
Small town.
Small town.
Like, well, we can't lose our football star.
Right. I couldn't. So then we change. We get to see our boy, James Marsden.
Yeah.
Gotta love him.
Pretty as ever.
Yeah, of course. I'm assuming that, like, although he's playing a high school person, he's not high school age at that point.
Yeah, he had to be like early 20s.
Right? Like, when was James Marsden born? He was born in...
Is he like in his 40s now?
He's 49, so he was born...
Oh, wow, okay.
What does that make him? 73? So he was definitely... Okay, so he was 20...
Math.
25? He was 25 when I played this role. Okay, now I no longer feel creepy about saying that in Smash or Pass, he's a Smash. I had to make sure that he was of age before I said it, otherwise it would have been creepy.
Yeah.
Because he's playing a high schooler. I should have checked that beforehand, but I didn't. So we see James Marsden. He's playing our floppy-haired lead, very Dawson's Creek vibes,
yes.
He is moving with his mom and his dad and his little sister, and they moved to this new town. They had to take a ferry across. This like police officer's like, welcome, you're gonna love it here. Yeah. You'll never want to leave, he said. Yep. Which is like, ooh, spooky. Is this it's like the Truman Show. Like, what's about to happen?
What's going on here?
So they get to their home, they're unpacking, the dad's like talking to the son, and then the son like looks at a package of pictures, and then he's like, Dad. And then the dad had walked away, and he's like, ugh, and throws the pictures down, and you see there's like this other boy figure, and you're like, ooh, who's that boy?
Who's that?
Yeah. And he's actually another famous actor who I can't remember what he's from. But
in the photo?
Yeah,
really?
yeah. I have to look up to see his name and what he's in, but he's definitely like in some other stuff. Oh. You only see like 30 seconds of him on screen.
Yes.
So, basically, then we get him going to the high school, and we get what has to be inspiration for the movie Mean Girls, when they are sitting at the table and delinquent boy comes up with Ken from the Barbie movie.
Yes.
And UV, who again really is just a lookalike at that point. So UV and whatever his name is, starts with a C, I can't remember. Delinquent boy and UV come up and they're like, these are the jocks, they're into whatever.
With like James Marsden's character, Steve, right? That's his name.
Yeah.
He like didn't say shit at first.
No.
Like, he just walks up to him and was like, jocks here, this is what they do, and this is what they're into. And...
Right. And stoners over here, and blah, blah, blah. So they start giving, like, again, the Mean Girls rundown of the whole school, and I was just like, if this was made after Mean Girls was, I would have been, getting a little upset, but instead I have to be mad at Mean Girls for stealing that information.
I mean, it was a good scene.
It was a great scene.
So
so we have that, and then weirdly, like, just for no reason whatsoever, Steve, aka James, decides that he's gonna be friends with this delinquent kid. Yes. And I think that a large part of that has to do with Rachel. So he is, for some reason, walking around with delinquent kids, and then he sees this, like, real hottie, and it's Katie Holmes, and she is looking like your rocker goddess of the late 90s, grunge queen. Hair up with strands falling out, all black. She's kind of grooving, but she's got a constant, like, angry face.
Yeah, she's, like, dancing on the back of the truck bed, just, like, by herself.
Yeah, just, like, vibing, you know. She's not like other girls. So he obviously gets very excited by that, wants to get to know her better. So then the three of them, so UV just, like, F's off. He's gone.
Yeah, he, like, appears and disappears.
Yeah, exactly. Just regularly throughout the film. So James Marsden and Delinquent Kid and Rachel all go out, and they're trying to get somebody to buy them beer. So they're, like, out in a parking lot. Like, I guess this was, you know, it's a different day and age. I did not drink alcohol in high school. I would never have asked someone to buy me alcohol.
I feel like it's, like, crazy that they were just sitting in the lot, just, like, harassing people. I'm like, you don't think, like, I guess it's why they have security at a lot of these liquor stores, at least at Philly.
Not here, dude. No, not in the suburbs.
Okay, well, it's for a different reason then.
Yeah. It's yeah, no, there's none of that. But I also don't know why anyone would ever buy a child a 6-pack. But, you know, to each their own. I don't know. Don't do illegal things. Okay, so they are getting all upset because he can't get any alcohol or whatever. It's been a while. Yeah. And then this jock boy named Chug comes up, and he's just, like, hitting on Rachel. He's like, come hang out with us at the yogurt shop. We're all going there. And she's like, thanks for the invite. And Delinquent Boy was like, I bet you like that, didn't you? And she was like, ew, no. And then you flash over to see Chug is, like, in the supermarket, and then gets really, I don't know, for some reason gets really upset. He's, like, honed in on Rachel. His eyeballs go, like, make X's, red X's over her regularly. And so he's, like, all horned up or something. And he just starts, like, attacking people in the supermarket, just, like, throwing these kids around. And the police officer comes up, and he's like, I got you, kid. Don't worry about it. So the kid gets off again scot-free. And then they all see that happen, and they leave. Okay, so then you go to the school the next day, and Delinquent Kid shows Steve where they all smoke cigarettes at the school. So they go, and we meet the Rat Man, who was a highlight of the film for sure. I loved him right off the bat. I really did enjoy him. He was just a goofy guy, and was really obsessed with rats, and really,
he's like the janitor, right?
Yeah. So you meet him first because he comes out of, like, this, like,
a manhole.
Thank you. That's what it's called, a manhole, and rat first. He, like, throws a dead rat up, and then he's, like, hollering at them, whatever. So that's, like, apparently the best place to smoke in the school. So that comes into play later, but for now we then see. I don't know what happened. Does anything important happen between then and the scene where they sneak in?
So Ratman brings up the speaker.
Yeah, so there's a speaker that he has that is supposed to get rid of rats.
They, like, hate the sound.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. But all the rats, like, don't care about the sound of the speaker at all. They, like, just sniff around it. So that's, like, his current mountain he's climbing.
Yeah.
Then, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, the next notable scene is one in which they, the Delinquent Kid was telling Steve about the fact that there's, okay, I'm sorry, I did forget about something. So the Delinquent Kid is telling Steve about his like whole conspiracy theory about everything that's going on, and that he saw that Mary Jo get murdered by Eddie or whatever. And he's just like, you know, there's something going on here. And Steve's like, yeah, sure, bud.
Yeah.
And then, so then they all go up and they see Rachel again. And then they look over and there's something I had not mentioned, which was that there had been this boy who had basically been major delinquent, again, more delinquencies. And this boy had, like, come into school, and he had gone up to the teacher and called the teacher a peckerhead, and it was, like, this whole thing. And the teacher was, like, I don't know, doing some sort of weird teacher techniques that were probably popular in the 90s. I don't know. And, like, sent them to the principal, whatever. So this kid is, like, major attitude problems. Then he, you see him now, and he's all dressed up. He's got a Letterman jacket on.
Like a jock.
Yeah, exactly. And he has his, like, really beautiful Mustang car, whatever, fancy boy car.
Yeah.
And he's smashing it with a hammer.
Yeah.
With all the other pretty boy jocks. So you're like, oh, what's happened to this guy? That's so weird.
Yeah. What's going on with these delinquent guys?
Right, exactly. So then, for some reason, Steve goes to the yogurt shop and goes to sit down with the popular people.
Yeah, he like walks in. And
right. And they're like, hello, brother.
Yes.
Come on. And I was like, Brett?
Brett's my husband.
Yeah. And he always calls everyone brother. And so I was like,
Philly
boy.
thing,
So I was like, what's happening? Do I know you? So, come sit with us, brother. And then he's like, I'm not your brother. Whatever.
Yes.
And so then you see that, like, delinquent kid comes. He's like, what, we have one fight and you want to go be with them now?
Yeah.
And let me show you something. So then they go back to the school and they sneak and they're, like, in this hidey hole that you can see perfectly well through. Like, literally, if you looked over, it's like a 3 foot by 3 foot square with, like, a very thin grid on it. So, like, very easy to see through. They're eavesdropping in on this meeting of the parents or whatever. So, basically, at this meeting... Sorry. It's just, there's so much that happens in this movie. So at this meeting, they there's the school counselor. He's like a psychologist or whatever, and he had met with Steve earlier because Steve's brother. They basically hint at something that happened back in Chicago with Steve's brother that he might need counseling for, and he was like, "I don't need you. I don't need anybody."
Yeah.
And they had left the room. So anyway, this counselor's leading the meeting, and they're talking about like how this kid went from being like not a great kid to suddenly being like a really good kid and doing really well. But the parents were like, oh, he's acting kind of like hoity-toity, like he's being obnoxious.
Yeah.
And then the counselor was like, this is called pride. He is an eagle soaring high. Anyway, so he's basically saying, oh, you know, that's fine. Don't worry about it. And then they start talking about the next case that they want to take in. They're like, oh, this is a kid who smokes weed all day, masturbates, whatever. And then Steve's like, that's embarrassing.
Poor kid.
Yeah. And then you find out that it's delinquent kid's parents.
Yeah.
So delinquent kid is the next one to go. And he's freaking out.
Yeah.
He says he's going to kill himself. He, like, has a gun. And Steve has to, like, wrestle the gun off of him.
Yeah.
And,
I feel like Steve is very, like, I mean, Steve doesn't know this guy too much, but, like, in that situation, like, I'm like, you know, this dude's scared, and it's like, why don't you just, you know, not go home tonight? And
but he did offer. He said, come stay at my house.
Did he offer? I don't know.
And the kid was like, okay. And then he tried to kill himself, and then Steve was like, took the gun and then walked away, which was weird. Like, I feel like at that point, I would have been like, away, I'm staying with you.
Yeah.
Like,
that's yes, I think Steve, it might be James Marsden just not interested in the movie, but Steve very much gives like a I don't really care.
Right. He's and I can kind of get it to a point where, like, if I was new to a school and some random kid started talking to me about how everyone was like brainwashed and freaked out or whatever, I think that I would be like a little bit weirded out about it.
Yeah.
Too. Because he doesn't seem invested in the friendship or relationship, really. He's invested in Rachel, for sure. Yep. But him, not so much. But I also get him, like, wrestling the gun away. He has, like, some trauma around things that have happened in his past. You later find out that his brother had died by suicide, which was, you know, very tragic for him. That's, like, his tragic backstory. That's all you really know about it. I feel like they led up to it to be a bigger thing, but they only talk about it once.
Yeah, it really, like, was just, like, brushed over.
Right. So, anyway, so then the next day at school, they're, like, in the cafeteria, and Delinquent Boy comes back, but he's not Delinquent Boy anymore. He's Jock Boy.
He's Jock Boy.
He's Jock Boy. So he's, like, hair combed back, all slick, and I won't lie, his hair definitely looked better combed back.
I think so, too. I was like, oh, he actually doesn't look that bad.
No.
He looked better.
Yeah, he definitely, like, beforehand, he was, like, a little unwashed, a little dirty, you know, he looked cleaned up, which was, you know, nice for him.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, but basically, Rachel tried to talk to him, and Steve was like, no, don't go talk to him, don't go talk to him, don't. And then she tries to talk to him, and they all, like, shove him off or whatever, and then Steve's like, I'm gonna go talk to him.
Yeah.
Steve goes to go talk to him, and it's like, what? And then they all, like, start beating on Steve, and, like, they clear out the cafeteria, and there's not a single teacher in sight. Like, literally, they just rule the school, clearly. Delinquent turned Jock Boy, gives him a hand up, and then, like, kicks him in the stomach, which was, like, not cool. So anyway, now Steve's like, oh, something's wrong here.
Yeah. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah. So it turns out something happened. So then you move forward to, there being some weird instances around Steve. It might have been that I don't know what happened later that day or whatever, but he comes home at one point, and this girl, Lorna, is there. So Lorna is who Delinquent Boy had this huge crush on. He was like, couldn't stop talking about her, but she's above his pay grade or whatever. He's, like, super into her. She's part of the jock guesses or whatever. Yeah. So
Jockuses.
So she's there, and he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, I was tutoring your little sister. Yeah. She's so smart, whatever. Where's my sister? She's sleeping. Why are you still here then? Yeah. And it was very weird, like, the way it was introduced to. It was just a very weird fucking situation. I'm like, where's everyone? Like, where are the parents? Exactly. So, I thought she murdered everyone. Yeah, it was, I would not have been surprised by that. Yeah. It was very alarming. And then he's like, get out of my house. And she's like, okay, well, can I go potty first? And he's like, I guess. So she's in the mirror, and she's looking at him in the mirror, and her eyes do the X thing. Yeah. And they're like, oh, zoning in. And so then all of a sudden she's like leaving the bathroom, and she's like run water through her hair, and she's unbuttoned her shirt. Again, early 2000s, late 90s, classic breast reveal scene. So she's got her breasts out, and she's, like, trying to seduce him. She, like, kisses him, and then, like, he, like, pushes her away. And then she, like, short circuits. And then she's like, I have to go. I have a test tomorrow. And, mind you, before she said this, she was like, something's wrong. She's just smashing her head into a mirror. Yeah. And then at some point, I forget what happened. At some point, she picks a napkin up and licks it to clean his wound. I wrote it down because it was so weird. Because I was like, the idea of licking a napkin is so grotesque to me. Yes. The idea of cleaning someone's wound with my spit is also grotesque to me. Like, both of those things, I feel like they're icky. This licking the napkin's worse, though. I just feel like that texture, I can feel it. That whole scene was just fucking weird. I was so like, weird. What? Like, it just felt like a little out of left field. I'm like, It made no sense. Like, since when is she into him? What is going on? It didn't nothing added up to that. No. I'm like, we didn't know shit about the little sister. Like, now, how does she know that she's tutoring? Like, I know the little sister was, like, getting friendly with some of the jocks, right? I guess they, like, gave her a blue bracelet at one point. Yeah. Like, how old's the sister? I don't know. I was getting, like, at first I thought 8th grade, but then I was like, maybe she's in high school. Yeah. If they, like, know her name. Right. Like, that was really weird. I don't know. It's a small town, I guess. But I guess, but even still, when it's been a small town and someone new came to our school, I didn't know their siblings' names. It's just, like, a weird, I don't know. Yeah. Not much information was, like,
this movie had a bunch of shit that happened, but also not enough info on shit that, like, probably mattered.
Yes.
Just, like, whatever.
Yes.
Who cares?
So, and there's also a scene showing where, like, her skirt comes up and she's wearing, like, the white panties and stuff. And I'm like, there was no reason for, like, there was literally no reason for that element of it, but okay. So then we find out, then we get a little bit of an idea of what it is that's happening here, because they zoom in and she's on the table and they're pulling something out of her eye and it's like a little chip, and it's the doctor, psychologist. Counselor guy, and he's like, gotta tell her parents she won't be doing cheerleading practice for a week.
Yeah, and they pretty much were like, these kids, when they get horny, they like malfunction. So
they malfunction and they want to like assault or kill. And I'm like, what? That's horrifying. So so that was awful to see the eyeball thing. And then we see an actual scene of assault. So the next scene we get like Rachel going to the smoke room, and she goes to get like the smokes, and there's a CD for her with her name on it. And then Chug comes in, he's like, Rachel, where are you? I saw you come in here. And she like puts her stuff down and like shows herself, and then he like basically tries to hold her down and do stuff to her. Even though she's like, no, and he's like, you don't know what you want or something. I don't know. Classic horrible whatever scene. Ratman is in there and is like kind of standing on the bench, kind of doing nothing.
I was like, what are you doing? Like, I was like, why aren't you saying anything?
Yes.
Like, this is going pretty far.
I was like, okay, maybe he's just biding his time and seeing what's happening before he stops. But then no, he just stands there. But then, because we're in the Ratman's cave, he's got his Ratman devices, and a rat went close to one of them, and it started letting off that squealing noise. Yeah. At which point, Chug goes down, and he's, like, screaming and holding his ears, and he, like, can't walk straight after that. Like, something happened. So, clearly, the rat machines make an effect on jocks and people who have this eyeball insert. So, then, basically, we are gonna fast forward a little bit to some more of our action scenes. So we're getting towards the climax.
Well, I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you brought up the scene where Steve goes to the Ratman, and the Ratman kind of like tells Steve that he's not all that he seems.
Yes, you're right. So there is a scene, there is a scene where Steve sees that Slaughterhouse 5, I think that's the name of the book, right?
Yeah.
I didn't read it. It's by Kurt Vonnegut or something similar.
Something.
Okay, I know he wrote Fight Club, I think. Anyway, if people actually know him and care, we'll hear it. But, so basically, he's got that in his back pocket, and Steve's like, you're not dumb. And he's just like, rats! He's putting on this show.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he turns to Steve, and he's just like, basically was like, yeah, it's all an act.
Yeah, like, it was just like, it's like a weird thing. So you know that he's not actually like, he was playing off that he had some mental incapacities, like that there was something that like he wasn't, like maybe he wasn't firing on all cylinders, or there was some ways in which he was kind of like not understanding the world around him, what was going on. But actually he is being aware, but he's playing the role of someone who doesn't understand what's happening so that he can learn more and kind of, you know, be a spy. Yeah, exactly. Kind of.
Yeah.
People don't expect.
Yeah, exactly. So that will come into play later. But we see that Steve is like, something weird's going on here. He goes up to Rachel. He's like, let's go investigate. And she's like, well, look, I have this little CD, and on that CD is this message from our buddy, the delinquent kid. And it's him basically saying, like, he overheard something about this nearby town. And if there's something different about him now, then it's too late. He's been brainwashed, X, Y, and Z, whatever. So they decide to go to this town, Belmont Hills or something like that. Well, they have to take the ferry over. There's like a little like flirting on the ferry. Yeah. And then they get there, and it's basically like, again, very late 90s mental asylum vibes, where it's like, that's definitely not what it's like in a mental hospital.
It's the horror version.
Yes.
Like a haunted house
yes.
asylum.
Yeah, the very much like overplayed into kind of vibe. So they run into this girl and she starts singing about like the little birds or flowers, insects on flowers or whatever. Yeah. So then Rachel punches her in the face to knock her out, which I was beside myself. I was like, you're just this poor girl.
Yeah, just in the asylum.
Living her worst life. Punches her in the face. They end up finding out on her wristlet she's actually the doctor's daughter.
Yeah.
So what this comes out to mean is that she was his first experiment.
Right. Which
is really cool of him.
And the whole, like, asylum thing, like, I don't remember. They just kind of appeared in there, right? Did they show them sneaking in?
Yes. It showed them, like, slithering through a door, but not, like, when they were in the asylum, they don't show them like actually making it in the front doors.
Yeah, because I remember I was like, "What?" Like I thought I missed something, and I'm like, "Where are they?" I'm like, "What the fuck's going on?"
It was very random and just like very sudden.
It was very sudden.
They were just like,
and I thought they were in like an abandoned room.
Yes.
Until the person popped up at the door, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Like there was like flickering lights.
Yeah, like it was an abandoned.
It really was like haunted house asylum vibes for sure.
So bad.
It was not good. So then they GTFO. They're like goodbye, whatever. They have to get gas, I guess, before they get on the ferry. Magically, the police officer is there at the gas station. So I don't understand. I'm like, they must have already crossed the ferry again to be in their small town. And this is like the timeline was messy.
The timeline was very messy at the end. I don't know, because it makes sense that they would have gone back to the town.
Yes.
But like we don't see them going back in the ferry, but we see them go back on the ferry later in the movie. But I'm wondering if that's the ferry to leave the small town.
It has to be the ferry to leave the small town, because
I think they just jumped back, just like they jumped into the fucking asylum.
They're just like they're just cutting wherever they can.
Like, we only got 20 minutes left. Get this shit going.
Exactly. So the police officer's like trying to get them out, and then he like throws Steve in the back of his car, but then Ratman shows up.
Yeah.
And Ratman is like, I got some rats to get rid of or whatever. And he like whacks the police officer in the back of the head. Police officer falls over, he opens the door, he lets out Steve and Rachel, and they're like, we gotta go. So they like peel out of the gas station, and they get to Steve's house, and Steve's trying to get his sister. So he's like trying to get his sister, and I guess he's like, I don't care about my parents.
Yeah. And they show
up,
okay,
and they're like, where are you going, son?
Yeah.
And then he turns around, and there's the doctor behind him, and he's like, it's time. And then basically like, I guess he's the next victim. They're gonna put something in his eyeball, and he's like, no way, Jose. Ain't gonna be me, brother. And so he like runs away, but then he gets caught by all the jocks that are like swarming the house. Like this is like a horror. Oh yeah, like it's a horror film. It's like there's just a hive mind of all these jocks standing there like, come to us. So they end up taking him, and they get Rachel, and they bring them to some facility where they are like strapped in, and he's like, here, we're gonna put this in your eyeball. But Steve manages to steal a scalpel. Good for you, Steve. Steve cuts him. This is the world's strongest scalpel, because it cuts in like 2 swipes. It cuts through his hand restraints. And he's able to get away right in time for the eyeball, before the eyeball thingy could touch his eyeball. And he saves Rachel just in time. Yep. And then him and Rachel run into Chug, and Chug starts to fight him, but he destroys Chug, and she hits him over the head or something. He's definitely dead. There's like blood pooling on the ground, but they're like, we've got to go. So then they run out, and then they end up running into UV and his sister, and they try to get in the car, and UV's like, wait, what's the capital of North Dakota? And Steve's like, how the hell would I know? And he's like, okay, get in. So basically, they get in the car, and they're trying to run away, but then they hit a barricade, and everyone is right there. The doctor and everybody is, like, blocking the roads. Then Ratman comes, and Ratman
saves
the day because he's got a whole truckload of rat machines, and he turns them on. And he starts
in a car.
Yeah, and he just starts driving away, and all the people with the eyeball things like start chasing him, and then Steve is like, "You three go to the ferry. Wait for me."
Yeah,
and then he gets on a dirt bike, and apparently he knows how to ride a dirt bike. He's from Chicago. Yeah. Of course he does. Everyone in Chicago knows how to ride a dirt bike. So he jumps on the dirt bike. He chases the rat man. He pulls up next to the rat man. He's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "This is the only way." And he's like, "We can't rehabilitate them." He's like, "No."
Yeah, we can't save them.
No. And then the rat man drives off the cliff with all the teenagers.
That, like, it wasn't their fault that they
who did nothing wrong at all. So they all apparently are killed in one giant child murder. Yeah. And then it's like a one-on-one between the doctor and Steve, and they're rolling around on the ground fighting, and Steve pushes him off the cliff, and he's also dead.
Yep.
And then Steve jumps back on the motorcycle, or whatever, not the motorcycle, the dirt bike, and he like does this like insane jump to get on the ferry. He's not wearing a freaking helmet.
No.
Feels no pain, apparently, not a single concussion. He lands on the ferry. It's just him, or his new girlfriend, UV, and his sister. Apparently, the parents, gone forever.
Fuck them.
Who cares about him?
I guess the parents aren't the ones that are aiming to brainwash.
Yes,
so.
But you would think that, and maybe this would be Disturbing Behavior 2. But
the sequel.
Right, exactly. You would think that the parents would be like, "Oh, this is messed up. Thanks for talking to me about it."
Yeah, and then all the parents whose children were murdered.
Dude, seriously.
Dude, I was dying when he's like, "This is it. This is all we can do." It just fucking drives off the cliff.
I was like, "You can't remove the eyeball thing? I don't understand." So that was wild. And then you get a cutscene. So whatever, Rachel and him are making out on the ferry, and then you cut forward and you see this what looks like a school in maybe Chicago or something. And I did spy Rosa from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Did you?
Yeah, I was like, "Hey, it's my girl."
Oh my god.
So I guess she was an extra.
Yeah.
And the final scene, and the teacher's like, "Meet your new student teacher," and I was like, I know who it's gonna be.
Yep, it was all delinquent students.
Yeah, exactly. And so he walks up to the front, writes his name on, writes something on the board, and it's like he wrote forward on the board. I don't know what that means, but it was the delinquent kid turned jock kid, who's the new student teacher, and that's how the film ends.
And it's like, where was he? The whole
I know.
movie?
How did he?
The
how
last
did
scene
he
we saw?
escape the death? The mass exodus of them from this world.
Because the last time we see him was the cafeteria, right?
I think so.
That was it. Other than the video, but that was new him.
Yeah, it was very weird. I don't understand it. I said that the most memorable scene was the cliff diving car and company.
Yes.
Nothing will ever explain away why that had to happen. I was very convinced when I saw that it was an eyeball thing. I was like, okay, it's an optic device. It can be removed. I was like, they're gonna rehabilitate everybody, obviously. Well, apparently not. That was so
the
weird.
only way to solve our problems.
Oh, his name was Gavin.
Gavin.
Yeah, because I wrote everyone's dead. Okay, not Gavin.
Yeah.
So. That was insane. Oh, also I wrote why'd you get out of the car? They all got out of the car when there was that roadblock. Yeah. Why would you get out of the car? You're in a car. Turn around. I didn't.
There was a lot in that movie, especially the hat. Towards the end, it's what? What is happening here?
Yes.
It
was a lot. So for the main character, I said smash because it's James Marsden at 25 years old, so that is appropriate and okay for me to say. Main villain, I actually had to think about it for a minute. I was like, the doctor,
not bad,
not too bad, but I did
crazy.
I did end up going with pass. He was a little bit too ooky spooky for me, and the mustache was just giving. It wasn't giving cute mustache vibes. It was giving creepy mustache vibes. Yeah. So I wasn't loving that.
That's fair.
How likely are you to survive this scenario? About a 6.
Really? Okay.
Are you surprised that it's so high?
I think it would be higher for you.
I wasn't sure because probably I would never even be one of the delinquents.
That's what I was gonna say.
Eyeballs.
I feel like you would be like, I mean, unless your parents were like, you know what, Megan could use. Megan could get that help.
Yeah. No, I don't think that they would have ever. But I guess I was thinking, like, if I was a chosen person, would I be able to get out? And, like, apparently, if I was in Rachel's shoes, no. I definitely wouldn't have grabbed a scalpel.
Yeah, that's fair.
That wouldn't have... Like, if I was captured, I would definitely have gotten the eyeball thing put in me. But I don't think it would have gotten that far. Right. So, you know, I said a 6, but I probably could have been a little higher.
Okay.
I would actually recommend this to a non-horror fan.
Really?
Yeah. So
I'm shocked.
I felt like there was a lot more to it than just horror. It wasn't like, because I didn't feel scared watching it. If anything, like, it gave maybe some, like, baby thriller vibes.
Yeah.
Like, nothing too much. It kind of had some sci-fi aspect to it.
It's a little camp.
A little action-y. Yeah, definitely campy. So I was like, I could see it being a film that I could be like, oh, is this what you're looking for?
Okay.
Here's what I could recommend to you.
Yeah.
There was even some romance in there.
There was, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So, overall, I gave it 2 hearts.
Okay, yeah.
Which I think is, you know, I genuinely enjoyed it in it being, like, a not great movie.
Okay. Yeah.
I had fun with it.
Yeah. There were definitely parts that were just fun, like, funny.
Yes, exactly. And I love James Marsden.
Yeah.
You know.
If he wasn't in it, it would have been.
Yeah. Not nearly as good. Not nearly as good, for sure. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. And the overall story was interesting. It was different. And the fluids was something. That was something else.
I need my fluids. That was
iconic. Yeah. Honestly, there's like one line in each of these movies that just makes me go, what?
I know. It's each one. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we'll jump into the movie Megan recommended for me.
Oh boy.
It's called Barefoot.
Uh-huh.
Director Andrew Fleming. Year released 2014. I thought this was like a rom-com. Apparently it's more like a drama. So my viewing was
kind of
skewed.
like when you look up interviews and stuff, they're like, oh, Rachel Evan Woods' most laid back role yet.
I don't know how much I can say about this movie, so we'll see. But my snapshot, I wrote Jay.
Wait, did I say Rachel Evan Woods instead of Evan Rachel Woods? Anyway, I would like to correct myself now. Yeah. Thank you.
Jay brings Daisy, an escaped psychiatric patient, to his brother's wedding. Daisy was raised in total isolation. Jay is in debt and in deep shit. That is the snapshot. That's the whole movie. I don't have to even break it down. Okay. The movie starts off kind of similar to One Small Hitch, where it's showing Jay's kind of a shit. You know, down on his luck. Is just sleeping with women.
I think it's like very early 2010s. That was the main male character.
Yeah, that was just it. Like, he doesn't take relationships seriously. Like, but he was cute. I will say the actor, I thought he was cute. Yeah. I was like, okay, like, he's definitely better looking than fucking what's his name, Josh.
Yeah.
Basically, he's, you know, doing his thing. He like doesn't really have a job. He frequents the strip club, and they're like, you're not allowed in here. Get the hell out of here. He's in the casino, and this like mafia boss like comes up to him, and he's like, you still owe me like $37,000. And Jay's like, I'm gonna get it, like, don't you worry. And apparently Jay has rich parents, but he doesn't talk to them. So we'll find out what he did so that his parents don't talk to him. But strained relationship. So mafia guy has some dude just kind of punch him up a little bit. He's like, all right, you have like a week. I think he said like a week to get the money back. So the mafia guy has the dude punch Jay up a bit, and then Jay fights back and then gets put into jail or like probation. He gets like probation. They're like, all right, your probation job, you have to work as like a janitor at this like psychiatric hospital. So another thread is that there's a psychiatric
you're right.
mental facility in both movies. There we go. Except this one's, you know, I would say done more appropriately.
Yeah, this one is like an act more slightly, maybe.
It's 2014. So J.K. Simmons is in this movie, and he's like the head doctor. Like,
oh yeah. I love him.
He's great, and I was like, Ariana, what are you doing here? But he's pretty much like, Jay, like, don't fuck this up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is it. Like, if you fuck this up, like, I don't know what's gonna happen to you.
Yeah.
So Jay's working like a janitor, whatever. He kind of meets Daisy for the first time. Daisy's like just being brought in, and she's just very like kind of like timid, pretty, blonde. They just like see each other real quick, and then whatever. So Jay's pretty much decides that he's gonna go to his brother's wedding. So his brother's getting married, and he's like, you know what, this is my chance to fix the relationship and get that money to pay the mafia back. So he's like, you know what, I'm gonna escape out of here. So he's on his way to like leave. So he's gonna break probation again, and then he runs into like Daisy. Like,
well, first he was trying to bring a date. Like, he was trying to bring a date, so he was like asking other nurses.
He was talking to the nurses,
and stuff. People who he had like messed around with in the
You're
past.
right. Yeah, he was talking to the strippers.
Yeah, trying to get anyone to go with him to his brother's wedding.
Yeah, no, you're right, because I missed the detail in the beginning or I missed the detail where he ended up calling his brother or his dad and saying, like, oh, I'm going to bring a date. Like,
yes.
I'm, like, getting better, I have a job, whatever, lying on his ass. I don't know why he would say, like, why does it matter if he's bringing someone, but whatever. We needed the plot, right?
I guess someone who would put up with his shit.
I guess, to vouch for him.
Yeah.
So he's starting to leave, and then he, like, Daisy's in, like, a room, and this, like, doctor is, like, he's harassing her, right?
He's trying to like, molest her.
Yeah, he's, like, it's not good. I was like, what the fuck's going on? So Jay, like, pretty much stops it and, like, tells the guy to fuck off and saves Daisy. Yeah. And he's, like, you know, he pretty much tells her, like,
I gotta go!
Yeah, he was just, like, he's like, I'm leaving. Yeah. And leaves, and then Daisy's like, well, I'm gonna follow this guy. So she follows him out, and she's very, like, the way she talks is very baby. Yes. Like, it's very, like, infantile, and I was like, okay, what is happening here? Yeah. And a little earlier on, she had a small discussion with J.K. Simmons' character, and pretty much he was asking her, like, if she's still hearing voices. And so you're kind of getting an idea, okay, like, what's kind of going on here? Is she, like, her mom? Something happened with her mom. But, like, that was it. Just, like, hints of that. So, anyway, she leaves with Jay, and he's like, shit, like, what are you doing? She's barefoot. Yeah. She has, like, nothing. She's like, I'm gonna, like, go. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, but, like, baby talk. Yeah. And he's like, I can't, like, bring you. Like, I don't know what the fuck. And then he felt bad, like, just giving her cash and leaving her because she's, like, a child.
Yeah, she clearly is, like, very underdeveloped socially and, like...
Yeah, basically. So he's like, screw it. I will take her as my date. So he tells her, he's like, say you're a nurse if they ask. You know, you're going to be my date, whatever. And she's like, okay. And they go to the strip club again. The strippers give her, like, outfits.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
And, like, as you, like, you're watching and she's, like, experiencing the world. She's like, oh, like, why are they dancing like that? And, like, she'll just say, like, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, she's, like, trying to dance on stage with them. Yeah. Because she thinks they're just having fun.
And, like I said in the snapshot, you find out she was, like, raised in isolation. But, like,
yes,
you're
she,
watching,
like, never left her home. She only had her mother around.
Yeah. And, like, when I'm watching, I'm like, I'm literally trying to process. I'm like, I don't know if, like, this is just, like, a bad iteration of, like, psychosis or, like, you know, maybe she's, like, on this, like, has autism. Like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what to judge right now. Like, I'm just, like, I'm just watching.
You're like, you know that there's something clearly wrong with her. Yeah. She is not presenting as someone who has all of her wits about her. Yes. Like, you're like, and that's not to say that someone else would be witless, but more to say that, like, she clearly needs
like
help.
Not anything at all. And she's very dependent on Jay, which I do not like. And throughout the movie, I was like, not the vibe. Anyway, they end up making it to, I forget, it was like the South.
Yeah, like very Sweet Home Alabama.
Some
like
southern
they're
country,
definitely down there.
No one had southern accents at all. So.
No, but they were like, he's a southern boy.
Yeah, they were like, oh, we have separate bedrooms because we're from the South.
Right.
And it's like, okay, like.
Right, so, okay.
So everyone's liking Daisy a lot. Like, she's very cute. And they're like, oh, she's, like, so funny because they think she's, like, joking. But she's not
everything
joking.
that she said is, like, fully serious.
And,
yeah.
So the next morning, the mom is like, Jay, like, Daisy's cleaning the bathroom. And so Jay goes up to her and she's, like, furiously scrubbing. And he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, like, you know, I had to do all the cooking and cleaning. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's like how she earned love from her mother.
Yeah, and she was saying that her mom said that's the only way to, like, earn love.
Yeah.
And, like, Jay's like, what? And then Daisy's like, I killed her. And I was like, and Jay's just like, okay. And it cuts to the next scene. Like, nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, first of all, Jay, you don't know anything about this woman.
Yes.
You don't know. She came from a fucking psychiatric place. She could be a straight up, like, serial killer.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know. He's just like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah. Right.
So I was stunned when she said that.
Yeah.
And that does not come up for a bit on what she meant by that. So the wedding's going on. She gets her cute Cinderella moment because the mom was like, you can't wear that stripper dress.
Yes.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah.
And she looked cute. She had a cute little, you know.
Yeah, it was like this
yellow dress. She was wearing shoes.
Yeah.
I really thought she was going to show up.
Yeah.
Like, walk down the steps in her shoes. But
sneakers.
I don't know what would have been worse. Sneakers or no shoes. So they go to, you know, the wedding's going on, whatever. She's like dancing. And she breaks out these, like, disco moves, which was my most memorable moment, which she's breaking out straight up, like, disco, like, routine. And Jay's like, damn, okay. And she's, like, slow dancing. She's like, I never danced with anyone before. And they're dancing. And then the mom's, like, interrupts and takes Jay away. So Daisy's dancing with the father. And the father's like, hey, like, what's really going on? Like, tell me the truth about Jay. Because Jay was like, I'm starting up a business. I just need 40K to, like, get it up and running.
Yeah.
And,
no big deal. No big deal.
And so the dad's like, you know, like, tell me the truth. I can't help unless you tell me the truth. And then Daisy, like, panics and, like, freaks out.
Yeah.
She has, like, a panic attack.
She, like, has a full breakdown on the floor, rocking back and forth.
You know, ruining the wedding.
Yeah. I mean, if that happened at my... I mean,
bitch.
no offense to her, but I do feel like I would be a little disappointed.
So, my God, I, like... Because there was, like, not much happens in this movie. So,
no, not a lot happens, but then a lot happens.
Yeah.
In, like 5 minutes.
A lot of... Yes, exactly. So after that, they go to the car. They go to leave. The parents are like, what's going on? And then Jay is pretty much like, I work as a janitor. Like, she's, like, a patient. Like, he doesn't explain much. That's all he says. And then that's, like, cool. And, like, walks away.
Yeah.
And, like, so Jay and Daisy...
But then don't forget, there's like this whole other moment where like the mom let the Daisy wear this necklace.
Oh yeah.
And then so the Daisy's like, let me give you the necklace back. And the mom's like, no, you keep it, honey. Yeah. And the dad's like, I gave you that necklace.
I got you that necklace. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it's
dude.
like, dude.
You're literally rich.
Right.
This, like,
this
poor girl. Breakdown.
And she is here with your delinquent son. Delinquent's another theme of the week.
Yes, delinquent.
And, you know, it doesn't seem at this point that it's very much on her will, but... No.
So he sucks, too.
Yeah.
So they head back to the house, and Jay's like, we gotta get out of here. So he's trying to get, like, keys to one of the cars. Daisy ends up finding the keys to the big, this van, like a travel van, that the dad was like, there's only, like, 8 working ones, like, in the world or some shit.
Yeah.
In the country. And so Jay, of course, they steal that fucking car.
Yep.
So they're driving. He ends up going to, like, a bus stop and is like, hey, like, I'm gonna make a phone call. Just, like, wait here. I'll be back. And then, like, leaves and drives away. So he, like...
Dude, that was...
Kind of, like... technically, he leaves Daisy at this bus stop.
Right.
With, like, a few bucks.
Yes.
And, like... was so fucked up because she doesn't know shit. She doesn't know anything. And she's, like... You can tell she's so sad. She's just sitting there, like, she's waiting. And, like, a security guard comes up and he's like, hey, like... You know, you don't have any shoes on. Like, she's barefoot again.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, like, my boyfriend's, you know, I was on a phone call. He's calling someone. And, like, you just feel terrible. And, of course, Jay's a piece of shit. But he calls the doctor, J.K. Simmons. And is like, Daisy's fine. She's at this bus stop. And, of course, J.K. Simmons is like, she has schizophrenia. Like, what? Like, what are you doing? And Jay's like, I think she's fine. You're not a doctor. That's what J.K. Simmons is like. You're not a doctor. Like, you can't diagnose her. And he's like, yeah, he's right. You don't know anything about her. You can't just be like, oh, I think she just needs a fresh breath air. Like,
yeah.
Breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I was gonna say, a fresh breath air.
That too. So he ends up, like, turning around and coming to get her because he feels terrible. Yeah. And she's like, it's late. And she's like talking to security and she's like, I just want to go home. And she's like crying. Jade fucking asshole shows up behind her.
Yeah.
And she's like, no more phone calls. And he's like, no more phone calls. So they leave. And we start getting a little more backstory. So pretty much she was raised in total isolation. Her mother had schizophrenia. Or she was hearing voices. Like there were things that, you know, it looked like it seemed like it was pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And basically one day she heard her mom screaming and didn't go to her. And the next time she saw her, she was dead. So she's like, I killed her. Jay's like, no, like that's not how it works. Like you didn't kill her. So very.
So you basically find out, like at this point you learn that there's like nothing clinically wrong with her except for maybe PTSD.
I mean, yeah.
But like in that, like she does not have a mental health diagnosis, although she probably could very much definitely very much benefit from a therapist and extensive help.
Yeah, no, I would say she absolutely needs a therapist.
Yeah.
Because like she was, even though nothing else, she was raised in isolation with just her mom.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was an abusive relationship because the mom, you know, God knows what happened, but a lot was going on. So yeah, she needs something. Yeah. But Jay's like, oh, she's fine. Right. She wasn't hearing the voices. And it's like, okay, but she's got a lot of trauma. So the scene I wrote for that should be deleted, I did write the whole movie. It was very difficult to pick a scene. But if I had to pick a scene, would probably be where there's like Josh is starting to like fall for her, I guess. I don't know. He's like into her and she's like laying in bed in the RV. And then he goes up to her and she's like, I know you're thinking about having sex with me. And he's just like, what? And I was like, please don't have sex. Like, I'm like, please, like, this poor girl is like traumatized. And she's like, you know, I'm a virgin. And he's like, yeah, I could have guessed that. And I'm like, I hated this scene. I'm like, and then she asked him, like, if he had sex with someone's wife. So she learned at the wedding earlier that Jay had sex with the wife of someone that his dad was making a deal with.
Yeah.
And he found out the business, you know, deal went sour, obviously. Yeah. And so his dad lost a ton of money. He like not lose money, but like an investment that could have made him a ton of money. So that was why like everything went bad with his parents, which is fair. It's like of all people, like okay,
not great.
And he was just like, well, she was like lonely.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up, Jay. You fucking idiot. So yeah, that was that scene. I just was like, not it. And like, it just goes on that, you know, they're having fun. They're stopping at like different like carnivals and like things, and they're doing things together. He tries to teach her how to drive, and boring. Anyway, gets to a part where he's like, I'm gonna have to we're gonna have to go home. Like, I'm gonna have to, you know, tell J.K. Simmons to get you. And she's like, okay, like, I get it, you know. So they go to a diner. He already called.
Well, before this had happened, there was like some scene where she like drives the car and he's like teaching her to drive, and then she finds out that like he had talked to the doctor, and she like jumps into the RV and starts driving it in circles and crashes it.
Yeah. She was like, no more, you said no more phone calls.
Right.
And there was a phone call. So then he convinces her. So cops come to the diner, and I honestly thought he was going to get shot. Like, the way the cop ran in, dude. I was like, oh my god, he did not get shot. But they get taken away. So I was like, I don't know how Jay's going to get out of this fucking situation. Because at this point, like, he left probation. Mm-hmm. He has a woman kind of hostage, like, technically. And so he comes back. He's put in jail. But his parents bail him out because, of course, they fucking would. And the mom's like, you know, you were as reckless as Jay once was. And I'm like, I fucking doubt it. Jay's out of his fucking mind. So they bail him out. His dad gives him a check for the fucking debt he's in. Daisy's at the psychiatric hospital, you know, whatever. And I remember Jay, I'm trying to think of, like, when this happened in events. Because I remember Jay telling the doctor, like, she's not schizophrenic. She doesn't, like, she's not hearing voices, whatever. And I remember the doctor being, like, shocked. Yeah. And I'm like, y'all didn't, like, diagnose her?
Right.
Like, I know she was new. So, like, maybe not. But I'm like, y'all didn't do anything? Like, y'all were just, like, she's, got
She's
shit going
hanging out
on.
here. Yep.
But I don't know. Maybe it was like too new and they couldn't properly, diagnose her. But
Right.
I was like, what? Like, how are you a doctor?
Right.
And then, so, oh my God, my notes are so off because this movie.
Well, there's this.
I know the mafia tries to kill Jay again.
Oh, do they? I forgot about that.
Yeah, because they tore through his room, his house when he came back, and then like he was getting like strangled to death. And then
I can't remember.
And this was at the hospital because one of the patients helped them.
Because basically what happened was he wanted to go see her.
Yes.
And they were like, no.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, fine. So he decides he's going to get himself admitted by like
You're right.
pretending like he was going to
commit suicide.
Yeah. So he like laid in front of a train and the police officer got him.
Yep.
And then they brought him there and the doctor was like, well, touche.
Yeah.
You're right. He's like sleeping at night, and that's when the mafia guy came.
Yeah. Because I was like, when did that fucking happen? Yeah. I forgot that he was trying to see Daisy, got admitted.
Yeah.
Almost got killed, but then he like made two friends, and the one saved him.
Yeah.
And then it ends with like Daisy being released because I guess she didn't have anything that was, needed her to be admitted for, even though I don't think that's correct.
Yeah.
But anyway, they get out and Jay and Daisy kiss and leave.
Yep.
And that's basically it.
Yep.
And I was like, it was just like I felt like depressed watching this movie. Because I'm like, this movie, I think I wrote here like 3 times. I was like boring as like I'm dying watching.
Oh my
this movie.
God.
Because it was just like slow, especially once they got the RV. I was like, oh my God, like dragging. But anyway, I got through it. So love interest, pass.
Okay.
Daisy is not in the right state of mind
fair
at
enough.
all. And I just don't like that Jay was her like
savior or whatever.
Yeah, and like no. Side character, who did I pick as a side character? Either way, I said pass.
Okay, was it the brother or the dad or the mom or the?
It might have been the dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was like the most frequent character.
Yeah,
and he was
so.
like a shitbag.
Yeah.
You can tell he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
How likely are you to fall in love with this situation? A 0. I would not fall in love with a psychiatric patient that was following me and had the mentality of a child for a bit. And I would not recommend this to a non-romance fan. Because it was just uncomfy. I just felt uncomfortable. And I didn't rate it.
You gave it no stars! Shut up!
I give it nothing. I never want to see this movie again.
Oh my God!
It was.
Do you know what's
horrible.
so funny is like
Did you like it?
So in my memory, like remember I did rewatch it recently.
Yeah.
Like the first time I had seen it was a really long time ago, probably back in what was it released? 2014 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably watched it then. When I was like 20 or whatever. So
Not that young.
Not young enough. But basically, like what I remember about having that experience is I picked it out to watch with like my family. And I remember being uncomfortable at the beginning because I was like, there is this element of like, is he taking advantage of her?
Right.
Like, what's going on here? And then you find out that all along she's actually like, quote unquote, fine. And it's all based on like circumstances that have been surrounded by her. And I remember being like so relieved. And like, so I remember being so surprised, like pleasantly surprised that for some reason I thought it was like a really good movie. Like I remember it being a really good movie, and I remember thinking to myself, Demi's gonna really love this when she watches it, because I was like, this is like genuinely a good movie. So I rewatched it, and then I'm rewatching it, and I was like, ugh. And let me tell you this, I was talking and I was describing the plot. So like I was describing it to our friends.
Yeah.
And my husband's in the other room and he hears the description. He hears the snapshot of like me describing it. And he's like, oh, I want to watch that with you. I was like, what? I was like, you want to watch a romance with me? And he's like, no, I thought that was the horror.
Honestly, not too too far behind.
Yes.
There could have been one little. She said she murdered her mom, so I was like, oh,
it could have been.
Could have been.
It definitely was like. I think maybe it was more a product of the time. I don't know, but I still think that like. I think it was like I wasn't as uncomfortable with it back then because maybe I was younger and more willing to allow.
In 2014.
And I think I was so pleasantly surprised by the fact that there was nothing
so
wrong.
Happy.
Yes. But I also think I have such a better knowledge of mental illness and like the traumas people experience now that I'm like, ooh, that's and it's his whole role feels so much ickier.
Yeah, and it was not done well. Like, it could be redone way better, and it could be a good movie.
Right.
Like, it had interesting, and I was like, as I was like writing my notes, I'm like, her backstory is too fucking deep.
Yeah.
For like a rom-com, and it was like a very serious thing that happened to her. So she was like, how old? Like she was. Like, until recent,
she's an adult,
right?
Yeah,
like,
so in her 20s or
it's
whatever.
like crazy. I'm like, that's fucking deep.
Yes.
And so I think it could have been redone. Maybe not so much as like romance, like maybe
more
a little
drama,
romance, but like more drama.
Yeah.
A little bit of romance maybe, but yeah, it was just not.
I think the whole fact that the whole thing was through the romantic lens was challenging.
Yes.
And the romance, I do feel like the romance genre has like some challenges in that way, in that like when you want it to be heavy on the romance, sometimes it's hard when there are other elements involved to not have that overwhelm it. But I don't think that this one was like super successful.
Yeah, and it honestly did not have a lot of romance at all. Like, and I think that was another thing too. Like, there wasn't a ton of romance. Like, there was the one Cinderella scene. There was when he first saw her, like, and like that was like, I don't know, maybe like another one or two scenes, but like real small. Like, it wasn't like a build up. Like, even like one small hitch, like
there was more.
It was like building up. Like, there was like, you can tell it was romance. This one, like, I was like,
especially with the fact that she was so childlike, and there were some elements to it where you're like, okay, I could see how someone would appreciate the childlike wonder that a person has. Like, that can be an attractive quality, but when someone is childlike, that's uncomfy.
She was kind of, I don't know, too babied. It was like too, like,
it was extreme.
Yeah. So, anyway.
But it is interesting too, though, because Evan Rachel Wood, which I didn't realize this until talking to friends, they told me she actually was involved. She was, for all intents and purposes, manipulated by Charles Manson. Did you know that? No, I didn't learn this until they told me.
She was like one of the like.
I don't know the whole story, but she was like a young kid who had been brainwashed.
Because like, what was his like group called? Like the he had like the little like groupies.
Yeah. He had the God, what were they?
Oh my God, that's fucking crazy.
So she like sued him and all this sort of stuff. So I didn't really look into that whole storyline very much.
Yeah,
but apparently that's part of her story, so I couldn't believe that either. I was like, oh my God.
I only knew her from Westworld, I think.
Yeah, that's what I knew her from as well.
And like Frozen 2, I guess.
Oh my God.
I think she was the mom.
Oh my God. Dude, I did not know that.
But yeah, no, that's crazy. Holy shit.
Yeah. So next week, Demi, I'm going to be having you watch the movie Leap Year.
Okay. And I'm going to have you watch Barbarian.
Okay. See if you can guess the theme. Reach out on social if you have any suggestions for movies or themes. You can find us at howdoyouwatchthis@gmail.com and howdoyouwatchthis on Insta, Threads, and TikTok. Thanks for listening.
Bye.